Let Me Explain has been on the ground in Tamil Nadu the last couple of weeks. We've spoken to candidates, we've spoken to star campaigners, but most importantly, brought you the people's pulse. And as we come to a wrap of our election coverage here, we thought we'll zero in on a few factors that Tamil Nadu will be voting on. Tamil Nadu's politics has always been about more than just elections. Identity, language, social justice, and a culture shaped as much by ideas as personalities. For decades, this has been a two-front contest. And of course, the DMK and the AIADMK still remain the main players. But as Tamil Nadu votes on April 23rd, that equation is beginning to stretch. With actor Vijay entering the fray, the BJP pushing for a foothold in a state it has long struggled to break into, and competing visions of development and identity in play. This election is much more layered than it appears. So join me and my colleague Azeefa Fathima as we look at a few factors that are really shaping this contest. Let me explain. Now, before we go ahead, I'm going to take a quick pause to remind you that in the last couple of months, our reporters of both the News Minute and News Laundry, along with veteran journalist Srinivasan Jain, have brought you multiple reports from the ground in Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Puducherry. All of this has been made possible only by your support. Now we're in the last leg of that coverage, and we need your support to help us meet our deadline. So scan the QR code on your screen and help us fund our election coverage. The first factor is alliances. Tamil Nadu elections are rarely fought by parties alone. They're fought and often decided by alliances. And this goes back to 1967, when the DMK first came to power through a broad coalition. Since then, no national party has been able to win on its own here. And this time, the DMK leads a secular progressive alliance. It's a broad coalition that includes Congress, left parties, VCK, MDMK, and several other regional players. As we already have seen, this isn't just a large alliance. It's actually tried and tested. And it's even delivered a big win in 2021. And nationally, it has continued to perform well in elections.
On the other side, the AIADMK is also leading an alliance with the BJP, PMK and others. But this front comes with visible tensions. Even AIADMK leaders have called the alliance a marriage of convenience, right?
1970s baby boomers will understand that alliance by any political party is a marriage of convenience. If you want to make the Gen Z to understand what alliance is all about, it's nothing but a live-in relationship.
Alliance is not on ideological basis. Okay. Alliance is on election basis. So election basis we are all there. Every party will have individual ideology. Then it can be a single party. Why they are separate party? They will have their ideology. But it is alliance means we are all standing together. Okay. So we have set an example that we are all standing together in a small space. We are sharing it.
BJP does bring a certain kind of protection from the central agencies, something that can be valuable in these times. But it also comes with a major discomfort, especially in a state like Tamil Nadu, which has historically resisted Hindutva politics.
After the 2024 parliamentary elections, it dawned on both these parties that they need each other because they can bring the resources, because they could have put up a tough fight in about 12 to 15 constituencies if the alliance had continued and if they had fought together the 2024 parliamentary poll. I think that realization brought them back. And yes, it is a double-edged sword. In fact, I consider it an albatross around the AIADMK's neck. Yet, they happen to be the ruling party at the center, so they could be very resourceful. I leave it to you to interpret what resourcefulness is. And the two major Dravidian parties can't win on their own. They need allies. So what else is there when all the leftist and all the left of center forces have joined the DMK? What else is left?
That's true. Then there is the PMK, which has a strong one-year base, but it also has internal tensions between S. Ramadas and his son Anbumani Ramadas.
Its alignment alongside leaders like Porkodi Armstrong also shows how very different social blocs are coming together.
So the question really is simple. Is this a cohesive alliance or a tactical one? And even if it is tactical, will voters actually buy it? I think that is the real question. Let's look at the second factor, anti-incumbency versus continuity. The next question is familiar. We ask this time and again, is there anti-incumbency?
After 5 years in power, signs of dissatisfaction does exist, like around law and order, rising costs, and everyday governance. There are often two types of anti-incumbency ways. One can be against the entire administration, like the people right at the top. In this case, Chief Minister Stalin and his son, Deputy Chief Minister Udayanidhi Stalin.
Actually, when that does happen, it's very rarely possible to escape the wrath of the people. But there's another kind of anti-incumbency that can be against individual MLAs. And the DMK seems to be responding to that particularly. The party has dropped around 60 sitting MLAs. Some of them even include ministers, and they've brought in new faces.
And this includes dropping 3 of the 34 incumbent ministers like R. Gandhi, T. Manothangaraj and N. Kayalvidi Selvaraj. However, Gandhi's son Vinod Gandhi has got ticket from his father's Ranipet constituency itself. That suggests that it is trying to contain dissatisfaction before it becomes a larger anti-government wave.
Absolutely. At the same time, the DMK is making a different kind of pitch, continuity. The argument is that things are working, so don't tinker with it, don't disrupt it. The state has seen strong growth, steady investment, expanding welfare, administrative stability. And then there is another crucial factor. What is the alternative?
Because anti-incumbency only works when there is a convincing alternative, right now the space looks very fragmented. The AIADMK is still rebuilding after leadership changes, and as we already pointed out, its alliance with BJP is not helping it or comfortable with all its voters. And new entrants like TVK are still finding their way around it.
So this election is not just about whether there is anti-incumbency, it's about whether that dissatisfaction can consolidate into a vote base, or whether DMK's argument that continuity is safer than uncertainty will actually hold. The third factor is Tamil Nadu versus BJP. There's a larger political narrative that is shaping this election. The DMK's primary political opponent does remain the AIADMK, but there's been a sharp focus on the BJP as an ally of the AIADMK. While there's still a junior partner in the alliance, the DMK has framed this electoral contest as Tamil Nadu versus BJP. Because with this, the DMK has positioned itself as the flag bearer of Dravidian politics as well as federalism. Now, this draws on a long history of language politics, state autonomy, and the Dravidian movement.
But this election, that argument has visibly sharpened because the BJP is now directly in the picture, trying to expand in a state where it has always been struggling to gain a foothold. And the AIADMK's alliance with the BJP adds another layer to this. The DMK's argument is that even if the AIADMK is the face, power lies elsewhere. The decisions are being influenced from Delhi. In an interview with us, Minister Palanivel Thiagarajan made this exact point.
The alliance sharing in Tamil Nadu in the secular progressive alliance was decided in Chennai. The alliance sharing of the NDA was decided in Delhi. Right? So the relative power in the relationship is quite evident.
And this plays out across multiple issues. Now take NEET, for example, which has been a long-running topic of concern, where the Tamil Nadu government has opposed a centralized exam system. They've argued that it disadvantages state board students. Then take the language debate, where the 2-language policy versus the 3-language formula continues to be politically charged.
Even cultural debates like the interpretation of Tamil history, including insights like Kiradi, have been drawn into the larger political framing right now.
Because something like, say, a Keeladi excavation, the discoveries that have come out of it, it offers a certain sense of who we are and where we come from. And I think people in Tamil Nadu are looking for those answers as to, if I speak the language, where did the script come from? Yeah. And here's a place that gives you that answer, right? And from a political point of view, if you use these fines are then used sort of to galvanize what I think of as like group cohesion. So around all of us having a common sort of point of origin or point of where did we come from. So in that sense, these historical finds, these discoveries are sort of seen as a very important I guess answer to a question that has long sort of plagued us as to do we have a common sort of ancestry with what the central government is telling us is our origin story, or is it distinctly different?
So this is also about identity and autonomy, and also about whether Tamil Nadu's politics continues to be shaped primarily from within the state or influenced from outside it.
And this brings us to the next piece of this election, federalism. Look, federalism isn't just an abstract idea in Tamil Nadu. It's a political issue that shows up again and again and again. You can see it right now in the debate around delimitation.
There is a growing concern in southern states that if parliamentary seats are redrawn purely based on population, states like Tamil Nadu, which have controlled population growth, could actually lose political representation. The DMK has consistently positioned itself as a defender of federalism, not just politically but in multiple ways.
When the DMK abandoned its separatist plank and decided to participate in an election, in electoral democracy, the first thing they wanted was that they should have, a system in which there is cooperation between the state and the center, and that there should be no domination by the center. And it gained momentum only in the early 70s when Karunanidhi became the chief minister, and he was the first to raise the issue of federalism on two planks. One is political power, and the second, which was more important, which continues to be important, on fiscal federalism. This is the only state which has set up a judicial commission, or at least a judicial committee, to inquire into the state of center-state relations. We have had about 3 or 4 commissions or committees constituted by the center, but Tamil Nadu has already done it twice.
And that is true whether it is linguistic federalism, which is resisting what it sees as imposition of Hindi, or even fiscal federalism. They've raised concerns about how much tax Tamil Nadu contributes versus how much it gets back in return. This is something that we've spoken about quite a few times. You could even look at administrative federalism, where pushing back against centrally designed schemes and policies are also seen. And many of these questions, from need to GST to funding patterns, are now directly affecting governance on the ground.
In the education field itself, a set of tendencies, there are centralizing tendencies, I would say, that there are more common entrance exams than in the past. There are more common admission streams than in the past. It's especially glaring in this in medical admissions. As you know, the South has never been short of medical talent. No one has ever complained about the quality of healthcare in South India, but there is a sudden thinking that you require to bolster the quality of students entering the medical field by having a centralized exam.
And politically, it all ties back to the same core argument. Who decides for Tamil Nadu? The state itself, or the union government that's sitting in Delhi? And in many ways, this election becomes a referendum on that very question. Now, the next factor is personality politics and the Vijay factor.
Tamil Nadu's politics has always been shaped by personalities. From Karunanidhi to MGR to Jayalalitha, leadership has always been deeply personal here and not just administrative. After the deaths of these leaders, that briefly changed. There was no towering figure inside, and politics seemed to shift towards alliances and ideology more and more. The AIADMK was dealing with an internal churn. In the DMK, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin was still stepping into the role. And it felt like Tamil Nadu might shift back towards more ideological, coalition-driven politics.
But Azeefa, that movement may now be over because personality is back at the center. Stalin is now firmly the face of the DMK. EPS is now leading the AIADMK conclusively. Narendra Modi remains the BJP central figure. Rahul Gandhi has gained significant visibility on the ground. He's quite popular too. And with NTK, Seeman has built a steady, identity-driven base for himself as well. But of course, perhaps the clearest sign of this shift is Vijay. Because in Tamil Nadu, cinema and politics have always been closely linked. And Vijay is stepping into that tradition in a very different political moment.
I think Vijay's entry is significant not just because he's a new player, but because of what he represents. His party, the Tamaraga Vetri Kazhagam, is contesting independently, positioning itself as a full alternative to both the DMK and the AIADMK. In Tamil Nadu's alliance-driven politics, that's quite unusual, right? And right now, Vijay is bringing not just his popularity to the table, but a carefully built persona. As we have already reported, his political image mirrors his cinematic one. He's supposed to be the Anna, the protector.
Of course, for years, his films have reinforced this very image. And now that story is moving into politics. But politics really is not cinema. And popularity doesn't automatically translate into votes. On the ground, organization, cadre, ground presence, all these things matter a lot. And that's where questions remain. TVK is still new. Its structure is still evolving. And its second-rung leadership is still unclear, if it is there at all. Its ideological positioning is also still taking shape. Some analysts estimate it could be enough to influence outcomes, but not win power. So Vijay may not win, but he can still shape the election by shifting votes and splitting margins. Next is the multi-front fight. This brings us to a bigger shift. Tamil Nadu may still look like a two-front contest, but on the ground, it's becoming far more crowded. The BJP is trying to expand. Vijay's TVK is contesting independently. Seeman's NTK continues to hold a steady vote share. Now, none of them may form the government. That we've been saying again and again. But they really matter. Because in a first-past-the-post system, even small vote shifts can change the results.
And both Vijay and Seeman are contesting without alliances, which means their votes are being drawn from across parties. Vijay could cut across urban voters, young voters, and sections of both DMK and AIADMK. Seeman has more defined base, built on Tamil nationalism and anti-establishment appeal. So what we are seeing is vote fragmentation, and in close contests, that can decide who loses, even if it doesn't decide who wins.
Let's next look at competitive welfareism. A central factor in Tamil Nadu's politics has always been welfare. In fact, it's been part of the state's political DNA for decades now, from subsidized rice to midday meals to education support and even social security. Even today, much of the electoral fight is about who can offer more and who can deliver it better. Almost every party is now promising some version of it. The DMK is campaigning on its existing schemes like the free bus travel, cash support and many other subsidies. The AIADMK has its Amma legacy and it promises expansion of that. Vijay's TVK is promising cash transfers, LPG cylinders and much more.
Even the BJP, which often criticizes freebie culture nationally, is offering targeted welfare schemes here. So voters here are not choosing between welfare or not welfare, they are choosing between competing welfare promises. And here, welfare is not seen as a freebie. It's about access to basic resources such as food, transport, education and dignity.
Of course, there are concerns about how sustainable this is, about how much the state can afford. But on the ground, these schemes are everyday life. If you want to better understand this, you can watch Azeefa's ground report. We've linked it below in the description. But this election isn't just as straightforward as it once was. The old two-front contest is still there, but it's under pressure from new entrants and shifting alliances. Voters are weighing continuity against dissatisfaction, while they're also navigating multiple questions of identity, welfare, and the BJP's growing presence. What emerges on April 23rd will depend on how all these different strands come together, or even maybe don't.